You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN. And now, TSPN News with Tom Slivick. Comprehensive news because in today's world, you need more than just sound bites. TSPN, streaming on the World Wide Web, and now on demand at tspntv.com. Hi everyone, and welcome to TSPN's News for today. It's our Supervisor Pre-Agenda Report, and today I have with me Supervisor John Plasse. John, good to see you.
Good to see you, Tom. How you been?
I've been fine. Good. And we'll get to the Supervisor's Report. Later we probably want to talk a little bit about the decision for Amador County to be able to still control its water for some time. And we'll be talking about that during the newscast. But first, we're going to take this break. So stay with us right here on TSPN. You're watching Amador County's #1 news and sports leader, TSPN.
At Jackson Rancheria, you'll find many talented chefs. Epicurean establishments. And culinary experiences. All at Jackson Rancheria. And all just for you. Come dine.
Now that's Rancheria style.
Jackson. I'm Steve Cranston, the Cadillac GM factory trained technician.
I'm Justin Nelson. I'm the Ford diesel specialist.
I'm Tom Burns, Toyota factory trained hybrid specialist.
I'm Jason King, Toyota Ford specialist.
And I'm Robert Hahn, Ford factory trained. Together with my wife Christy, we own and operate Robert Hahn's Automotive, where we stand for service, quality, and affordability.
Factory trained, ASE certified, from a routine maintenance to an engine overhaul.
Here we are, and I'm back with John Plasse on TSPN's News. John, you push your book over here. Can you do the agenda without that thing?
Not likely.
Okay, so we thought we'd talk about water first, and then when we come back,
that was my
from the break, we'll do that, because it is a very important decision that was reached. I believe it was, I got news of it last Thursday. Probably a lot of people did from a press release that came to me from Rich Farrington, but I believe it was penned by Gene Mancebo, director of the Water Agency. And tell us what chime in.
Well, I'll chime in, Tom. In the end, SB 1199, which would have designated the Mokelumne River, or 37 miles of the Mokelumne Wild and Scenic, was held in suspense in the Assembly Appropriations Committee.
That's like a pocket veto?
Well, I don't know what it's like. It just goes into the suspense file in committee if the committee decides that there is some level of fiscal impact to the state of California. So the chairman of the committee, who's a Democrat from down in Southern California, put it in the suspense file. I believe our Assembly member Bigelow, who's vice chair of that committee, was influential in that, and it stayed in suspense for that reason.
I believe the
I
cost
think for
was,
a variety of reasons.
I could be wrong. I'm going off the top of my head, and everybody knows it's not that well planned up in there. But I believe it was like $850,000 a cost.
Awful close. There was a.
And I think it was pushed as having no cost when it went through the Assembly.
That it had no fiscal impact, but the fiscal impact it did have was that the legislature allocated over $1 billion to an interregional planning effort for regions throughout the state to arrive at various water supply and conservation and a whole host of options to improve the water supply in the state of California. And here in our region, that process is called MOKWISE, as you had mentioned. I believe our allocation of that $1 billion was somewhere around $1 million and a half just for the MOKWISE process, and that hasn't played out.
Okay, let me, for those of you that might not remember, but we had Rich Farrington, and we did a lot of shows with some people about that. It seemed to be one thing that kept coming up was saying it would be wise if we would wait for this MOKWISE decision, because it has all the agencies, Amador Calaveras, that were looking for what we should do with the Mokelumne in the, I guess, wisest way. And so it sounded to me like that committee in the Senate took that into consideration, and so it might, go ahead. It might come back. I mean, it's just sort of a reprieve.
Yeah, it really is a reprieve. All indications are from the sponsors of the bill, the Foothill Conservancy and the Friends of the River, is that they've learned a lot here. Apparently, they've learned a lot about politics, which is interesting because it's been all politics from day one on this. Finding a legislator from outside of our region just to author the bill from Berkeley.
That information from was from the letter that was, I believe, written by Cecilia and Catherine Evatt, quoted
Smith
quite a lot
Catherine
that came out from the Foothill Conservancy, the press release.
Right,
from that, John,
that
that
they felt that they've learned a lot and they have to work that much harder to try to get this designation imposed on Amador County.
I believe that they should have possibly taken a lesson. I read through that of, I don't think that maybe the politicians on the other side felt like there was compromise or an attempt to compromise or to take into consideration would probably be a better way of taking into consideration the needs. And it was just, kind of going.
It was. It was going right down party lines
forward
for a long time. And I do believe that even across the aisle, the Democrats recognize that Amador County and all of ours and Calaveras County's water purveyor agencies, their concerns had not been addressed. The Conservancy will tell you that they brought in, several of the amendments that we had requested. Yeah, all the largely meaningless ones they brought in, but the main concern that we had was the ability to, like you said, control our water, the ability to have future projects and in fact even perfect our water rights that we now have. Amador Water Agency has received a curtailment letter from the state, and they are disallowed from drawing any more water out of the river than what we currently have stored in Bear River Reservoir through a contractual agreement with PG&E. Well, if we don't have a good wet season this next winter,
I'm going to lose a lot of
what
trees where
what we'll have stored in Bear River will not be equal to what our actual water right on the Mokelumne is, and if this curtailment letter from the state stays in place, we're not able to draw down that water.
I'd like to point out one more time, too, that Amador County gets almost all of its water, I believe it's 97%, maybe 93, 97, from the Mokelumne.
Exactly.
As Calaveras, though, uses from the Mokelumne, I believe, only about 3% of the water.
Yeah, very little. They get most of their water supply from the Stanislaus and the Calaveras.
Right. So we're not equal, same, in this sort of a sense of like who's dependent on that Mokelumne River. And I'd like to point out, too, you go out there today and the kayakers are kayaking and you can get access to that, and it's still as pretty and it's still as wild as it is, and it's scenic. I know I go there and I love it, and people do. So in a way, it's not losing a thing like that. It seems like an extra layer of protection that's going on that might very well hurt the ability for Amador County residents to have water, but also, the question of me that I had for a lot of people, and I really don't think I've got it answered, was, well, if this happens, is this the size of Amador County now? Because what can we do if we have no more water? Is this the close down of potential possible growth?
It is. It is. The California Wild and Scenic closes down that unless the Secretary of Agriculture at the state level determines that there's a domestic need. It disallows the use of any additional water rights for any of ag purposes, which is a large contributor to our economy here in Amador County.
And of course, that's a great place to grow more into the ag areas. And
absolutely.
We have like a lot more people trying to do farm to fork projects and things like that, and it's working out very well. I mean, that water is very important.
Exactly. Grass-fed beef, farm to fork, our farmers markets, Whole Foods, our wine industry, all of that is agriculture-related economic base for Amador County. And to compromise that when there's already, and this was an interesting fact that I learned during the process, there is more water being released down the river specifically for the kayak flows, what they call boatable flows, than the total water rights of both Amador and Calaveras counties combined on the Mokelumne. More water's already, through the FERC licensing agreement, being released. So when is enough enough? Like you said, the river is what it is. It's still beautiful. It still has those release requirements in place. I saw some kayakers coming pulling into Taco Bell today. I guess
It
that's
could have
part of
been
the
me, but
economic benefit
I don't
of
like
them.
I don't like the white water. Too old, break too easy.
But,
and another thing, I think one more, just because maybe we put most of this stuff in this segment, and then we'll move on to the agenda after the break. But I think the catchphrase that was so bothersome to the side that was considering, like, what about the future use, and with the Conservancy saying, well, you can still have future use, was like kind of a clause that said, you know, but the quality of the water and the
that could have a potential to affect the free-flowing condition of the water, of the river.
So that's just like a legal foot in the door that's always there.
That's all it is. It's litigatable language, and all of our attempts to either define or remove that language were flatly refused by the Conservancy and Senator Hancock.
So that would probably be the point, if anybody want to work on it, would be, let's see what that language really means, and you know, maybe there is ways that, although I think we pointed out, it's working already for conservation purposes, seemingly, because already anytime there's any threat to the quality of it, it's litigated. Anytime there's change in there, it's litigated. So it seems to me just like this was the final nail. We don't have to worry about litigating anymore because it's a done deal. And then we'd say, well, okay, it's a done deal. Then that means what? We're stuck. This is what we do. This is where we are.
Exactly.
So I think if people will keep that in mind, you know, and clear, it might help with the both sides of the argument. I admire anybody that wants to keep nature the way it is and keep it for man to use and for all of the animals and all of that stuff. That's a very noble cause. But we need to be practical and use reason with it as well. And I'm sure the other side, because I do stand on the side, but needs to see that I don't see the other side as being very reasonable. So much for Tom Slivick. Listen, my words, not John's. So, you know, and,
quite all right, Tom.
And guess what? You're never going to have to vote for me. Okay, we're going to take our break, and then we'll be back. We'll find out what's going on tomorrow at the Board of Supervisors meeting. So stay with us. We'll be right back after the break. You're one. Hi, everyone, and welcome back. And I want to congratulate Austin. Austin's on the switcher today, a new guy at TSPN. He's been here for a little while, but he's new on the news, filling in for Sarah, and hopefully doing a great job. So thumbs up, Austin. Okay, what do we have, John?
What do we have? We start off our regular agenda with another discussion on medical marijuana and its cultivation and the county's ability and or need to regulate or limit the amount of it that is cultivated here in the county under the medical prescription allowances.
Is there any specific area, or as we talk about the whole?
Well, I just think sort of globally we discovered that we had a hole in our ordinance. We passed an ordinance earlier that basically limited how many plants a given prescription holder could grow outdoors, and that they needed to be shielded from view of the public and view of any school kids walking by, and just trying to pass a common sense.
It gets to be a high dollar item that's kind of like out there just, you know, tempted. You can't really put chains and locks around the plants probably.
You know, we passed that ordinance, and in doing so originally, there were members of the community that were very vocal in admonishing the Board of Supervisors for, in their opinion, infringing on their rights to grow as much marijuana outdoors as they wanted to and so forth. And ironically enough, in the end, we had an incident, a crime occur with one of those very proponents.
Seemingly a very large grow.
Well, no, I'm talking about another one besides the Carbondale one.
We're not, okay.
No, we also had an incident happen to a family that were strong advocates against the marijuana ordinance that we passed, and suffered a home invasion style robbery, and the people that came there and abducted the lady of the house came there specifically for all the marijuana that they talked about they were required to grow for their own medical purposes. Okay. So there is a cause and effect. that occurs with that. As you stated, sort of an attractive nuisance when you've got something of value. And then you mentioned the Carbondale incidents, where now the Amador County taxpayers are not only paying to prosecute the 3 out-of-town folks that came up to rob that marijuana grow and ended up killing somebody in the process, but we're paying to prosecute them, and because they declared the need for a public defender, we're paying to defend them too.
Both sides.
Yeah, both sides.
And there's no chance of getting the monies back from the
we
state?
do receive some reimbursement back from the state, but it's very delayed, so we're having to front end, finance the whole prosecution.
Right, and of course that hurts all, what you can do. With,
absolutely.
when it affects the budget.
So the hole that we have recognized is that we didn't address indoor grows, and we were mainly talking about home grows, medicinal users of marijuana and home grows, but we feel that there may be a need to address indoor growing on a large scale environment. Somebody takes a warehouse space.
What if I bring something up right at the moment? How about that old tomato plant that's a huge greenhouse?
Well,
we could be the largest grower in California, I think.
It could very well if we don't do something about that. So
and I think you can get that at pay the taxes.
But any type of a facility like that could potentially become a very large grow site that had very much of an attractive nuisance aspect, and then what do you do?
And the legalities on it, or the wording is vague,
yeah,
of what you can do. So you want to pull that
down. We want to
down
tighten that ordinance up a little bit, I think. So
it's interesting,
that's
side note, sorry, but I believe El Dorado is now seeing at their supervisors meetings people complaining about the smell. So it's like,
that was some of the earliest complaints we had from the outdoor grows, I guess. In the springtime, when the plants start budding and flowering and so forth, I guess it's a very pungent odor. I'm not familiar with it myself.
Skunkweed.
Skunkweed.
Okay.
I've heard that it smells like a skunk, yeah.
Okay. All right.
And going on down our agenda, we're going to take a look at possible refinancing of the certificates of participation for the County Admin Center. We still have some indebtedness on that, and look at ways of saving additional monies there, maybe combining them for the construction of a jail project
that seems to be some controversy about that whole building thing too. Am I right? Is that what we're talking about? Or maybe probably not in that.
No. I don't know of controversy on that.
I might be wrong now.
I'm sure people could say
this is
it's
Health and
too
Human
big,
Services building?
No, this isn't the Health and Human. This is the County Admin building, right up here.
No
on Court
controversy
Street.
about that. That I've heard.
Don't start anything now, Don.
Sorry, John. Boy.
But and then we also will be taking a look at a Health and Human Services public health agreement that is for public health emergency preparedness agreement. This was just something that when I first came on the board, we recognized that there were incidences where those grants that our public health office was advocating for and applying for, those grants were being abused a little bit. There were sort of useless trinkets being purchased with those monies that we now store in the county warehouse space, and really of no value. And it was just sort of grant allowing the nebulous language in a grant, or the very generalized language in a grant, to justify the purchase of just about anything, from a bracelet that says I'm a flu fighter to a static cling decal you could stick on your window there.
Okay, like the things that they give away to add to conscious levels to bring their
right. It's classified as community outreach, things of that nature. So we are just looking to make sure that when any of our departments apply for grants, that they are doing so in a fiscally responsible manner, and not applying for money just because there's money there to apply for that we really don't need. I think this board, just in its fiscal responsibility, feels that those types of decisions are contributing decisions to the overall indebtedness of both our state and nation, and we'd prefer to be part of the solution rather than part of the problem.
Okay.
So From there, we'll go on to the grand jury response. Every year, the grand jury issues a final report, and at that point, our legal counsel and CAO work to file responses to the recommendations and so forth in the grand jury report, so that will be released tomorrow. We also have a project for the Kennedy Mine. This is something that I brought to the forefront here. We're looking to achieve some better fire preparedness around the Kennedy Mine. As you know, it's about 150 acres out there, and there's a lot of brush and a lot of grass and a lot of dead and dying oak trees, and just there's areas for a lot of improvement in sort of creating more defensible space and more fire resistancy to that whole facility. We'd hate to lose those buildings and so forth. And the CAL FIRE crews, the Pine Grove Camp crews, are able to do that work for an organization like that if they have a public agency, whether it be the City of Jackson or the County of Amador, as the sponsoring agency, because otherwise their regulations only allow them to do that sort of beneficial work for other public entities. And the Kennedy isn't a public entity, it's a 501c3, but if the county sponsors that effort, then they can do it up there. So we're looking to get some work done on that. Then we'll go on into our public hearing around 10:30, where we'll discuss the ACE's waste management, some rate increase proposals that they've brought forward on this. It went through the 218 process, the petition process. The county received very few, in a couple of instances, 0 protest responses, and I think in 1 or 2 of the areas, the franchise areas, we received like 1 letter in opposition to them. So it'll be up to the board minus this supervisor, because I have to recuse myself from any decisions affecting the financial aspect of ACE's waste management. My son works for the company, and it could be construed that I was approving a weight increase so that he could get a raise or something. So I just want to avoid any perception that there's any conflict there on my part, so I recuse myself from those things. And then lastly, we've got a relatively simple Planning Commission recommendation to rezone some property up off of Charleston Road in the Volcano area from a manufacturing district to a residential single-family district. It's actually, you might call it going, backward zoning or whatever from a higher impact.
So that's just an opportunity whenever that happens to give the public that are involved the opportunity to come down and state their case and lay out why they're for or against it to help you make your decision. Right?
Public hearings are advertised in the paper and noticed, and anybody can come and speak during that time.
Well, we're going to be taking our final break. John, thanks for coming by. And once again, I'd like to invite everyone, if you can't make it down there, they have a great service where you can hear the Board of Supervisors report on the internet. Go to Amador County's website, and you can follow the path. Thanks for watching TSPN. We'll catch you again next time. Bye-bye. You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN.